to give us an update on where you see things at the moment in the middle of this interesting time.
Interesting times, definitely. But put your hand up at any time if you want to ask a question. Anything that you're curious about or direction
Yeah, cool.
that you want me to go.
I will. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
And I'm just going to, so I've hit record. Now you hit record. And we go 5, 4, 3.
Hi. On today's episode of Mid-Market Matters, we're joined by my longtime mate and also fantastically well-known futurist, Craig Rispin. Craig, thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you, and I've got so much to share and optimism for the future when everybody's worried, it seems like.
Absolutely. We're in the middle of a very, very unusual black swan, if you want to use that terminology, event. It's affected everybody, businesses, individuals, families, health, you name it. But as you said, there is obviously a future at the end of all of this. This will end at some point, and our clients and listeners are certainly keen to know what that might look like. So I've asked Craig to come along today, give us his view. He's an expert at predicting the future, if you like, at looking forward, telling us what we should be aware of and what we should be taking advantage of to perform better in business. So I'm going to stop talking and hand over to Craig and ask him the question, mate, what do you see in the future? What's going to happen?
Okay, we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about the situation that we're in right now. And you said Black Swan. Nissim Taleb, who wrote The Black Swan, was being interviewed recently on a financial program. And this is what he said, Craig, and this is not to make you wrong. He said, this is not a black swan. This was predicted. And it is, as you probably know, in 2009, I was in the audience at the TED conference.
Yes.
And there was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates had this little clear glass or plastic cube. And nobody knew what it was in front of him until he was talking about the spread of malaria and other pandemics and so on. That was back in 2009. Yeah. And towards the end of his presentation, he said, yes, I'm going to just show you these. He opened it up like surprised. And yes, all the mosquitoes went out. You should have seen the panic on everybody's face. And so it can't be a black swan when futurists and very smart people like Bill Gates and his foundation that he set up with Melinda, have been working on this for a long time, crying out, we need to be better prepared. Yep. Some countries have been better prepared, but Nissim Taleb said, this is not a black swan. We should have been prepared. And some have more than others. But when you think about mid-market companies and what they should be thinking about right now, is thinking about what's going to be on the other side of this. But let's talk about the hope for what's going on now and what we can expect going to be the drivers of the future that you should be preparing for. Sure. So I'm going to share my screen because I've got so much content to share with you. And it's actually a good story. So the good story is around the fourth industrial revolution. And I just have to tell you, as you probably know, and I've been saying this for years, and we've known each other for decades, literally.
We have.
The world is moving faster now than ever before. Faster than ever before. Acceleration is accelerating. Change is driving change faster. And this is a good news story because the fourth industrial revolution, which is defined by three areas, three main drivers, which are the digital. The past third industrial revolution was a digital revolution of two C's, computers and communication. That's going to continue, but it's going to impact and fuse and drive faster the area of biology And that's what we're dealing right now, is a biological threat. And that is good because it's accelerating things. And I'll give you one data point. Another virus called the AIDS virus. It took us 2 years to isolate it, to even know what it was and isolate it, as they call it. It was isolated. We didn't have a treatment of any kind, let alone a vaccine, which we still don't have. We didn't have any kind of treatment for another 3 years. To give you a comparison, because of the fourth industrial revolution driving change in the biological area, we identified and isolated, no thanks to the Chinese government, who said, oh, it's only the flu. Then they said, oh, it's only SARS. We've seen it before. But some young doctors said, no, this is something new. And they had to admit it. So they delayed us a few days, but it wasn't too bad. 7 days we isolated it, not 2 years, 7 days. And in 3 days, we had genetically scanned it. We sequenced it, and a not-for-profit research university in China uploaded it onto Amazon's web services, so onto Amazon, and shared it. And that means that there are 300 organizations working on solutions to this crisis right now because of that. Yes. And guess what? In the news today, human trials starting here in Australia and overseas as well as our first attempt. And there's 3 types of ways that you can treat this. One is a genetic treatment. One is an antibodies treatment. That's what is being tested. Human trials, it was just announced today in Australia. And in another country, sorry, just slipped the mind because I'm going so fast. And but there are hundreds, literally hundreds, of preclinical, clinical, and pre-human test trials happening, all thanks to the rise of the fourth industrial revolution. And here's the challenge for most mid-market companies, Craig, is that when it comes to their strategy, especially in the time of crisis, they don't do very well in strategy planning. I talk to them and I say, how do you do your strategy planning? And they say, oh, a SWOT analysis. And I think, oh my goodness, invented in the 1930s. We're in a different time. And, A.T. Kearney is this big consulting firm. And they've looked all around the world and they asked their clients, look back to all those strategic plans that you had that failed. Not that were successful, the plans that you had that failed. And please tell us, what is the common trait that made them fail? And it was this surprising number. 15,000 of their clients responded, and 88% said the same thing. 88%. Craig, what do you think they said was the number one reason that their strategic plans failed?
Execution.
No, it wasn't execution. Many of my clients, when I ask them, are you very good at execution? They say they are. And some of them are, most are not, but some of them are incredibly good at execution. It wasn't that. We want to have another guess?
No. What is it?
It is lack of understanding of future trends.
Yeah.
What they said was, hey, we had this idea for this strategy and we decided that we were going to roll it out. It took us 18 months to do that. And by the time we got there, the world has changed around us. That was one anecdote from this big report. You can go find it if you want and read it. It's a big report, but that's the one that stood out for me. Yes, the world is changing faster than ever before. We're living in a massively changing world. And that was all before this, what we're in now, in the crisis, right? And there's this idea of business competency. Have you heard about this idea, Craig?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay. So for those people who don't know what it is, business competency, do you have the business skills to be competent in the modern world? And it used to be, universities would say, when you come out of university, especially back in the 1980s when I was going there, to university, they said, your business competency should last you 30 years. Do you know that business competency is now down to an average of 3 years?
Yeah.
3 years. And so when I talk to leaders and I say, are you educating yourself about the future because things are accelerating? Are you committed to continuous learning? They say, yes, we are. And I ask, well, tell me about your executive learning program. And 99% of them say, executive learning program? Like, come on. This is professional development. If we're working in a world that's rapidly changing, you have to keep up.
Yeah.
And so there's this idea of the knowledge doubling curve. It was started by Buckminster Fuller, a great futurist and architect, the guy who coined the term spaceship Earth and invented the geodesic dome. And he used to lecture down at UC San Diego. My mother would drive me down. I lived in Long Beach, California. She'd drive me down, and he would give his lectures out in the quad for free, and I could go listen to his stream of consciousness lectures for free. Wasn't that a wonderful thing? You didn't have to pay university fees, and you could go see his lectures. That's great. Now we have iTunes universities. You can do the same thing. But he came up with this idea, and he would put it onto his chalkboard. He said that his students and himself had studied that the amount of human knowledge would doubled approximately in the 1900s every 100 years. And there are companies that listed in the 1900s on the stock market that lasted 100 years. I'm thinking of Kodak. It was based on one human idea, and then things changed quite rapidly, didn't they, for them? Yeah. By 1945, it was 25 years. Now UC Berkeley and IBM have taken up this research. They've got undergrads and PhDs studying this, the rise of human knowledge and how fast it's rising. And you can see that exponential growth there. Currently, they say it's about 12 months. And so you've got to invest in your education, and hopefully this is a little bit of an education for your listeners, to up your education, because look, it's doubling every 12 months. But by 2030, that's only 10 years away. It's going to accelerate because of the rise of one technology that's a driver of the fourth industrial revolution. That is the IoT, the Internet of Things, or what I prefer to call it is what my client GE calls it. They call it the Internet of Everything. Yeah, and this is going to solve the healthcare problem. So IBM predicts that the build out of the Internet of Things will result in the doubling of human knowledge every 12 hours. I'm not saying this. There's 100 PhDs at IBM. When I put this up and people guffaw in my audience, I was presenting to a government institution. Oh, that's not possible. No, it can't be, blah, blah, blah. I said, don't argue with me. Argue with the 100 PhDs at IBM and UC Berkeley. You can argue with them. Don't argue with me. Here's the research. Go argue with our scientists. He didn't want to argue with them for some reason. But anyway, and how is this possible? It's because we're going to be collecting so much data. So this is what Singapore was planning on doing before this crisis, and they're going ahead with this. Singapore will be the first country in the world that the entire country, it's a city-state, small island, so it's easy for them to do, to be blanketed in 5G data. With 5G data, we could be monitoring the health. And yes, there's going to be some privacy concerns, but they can anonymize it, and they could track the temperature, because even before you've got symptoms, this could be picked up on your Apple Watch. It could be picked up on another device. If your heart rate changes just slightly and your temperature goes up and down just slightly, it's a precursor, it's a pre-indicator that you might have COVID. And wouldn't it be great if a driverless ambulance came up to you and said, get in, we're taking you to isolation? And I read about this when I was 9 years old in a book. And guess what? This is actually going to happen. They're going to opt in. You don't have to be tracked by the government. But luckily, Singapore residents, they mostly trust their government. That's why it's been the same government since the independence. So they can do it. It'll be much harder here in Australia. but they're going to be much better off. And I have to tell you, in the last SARS crisis, when I had live events canceled, like everything, all the live events are being canceled now, they're being canceled there then in Asia. I remember flying into Singapore, and I was coming up the jetway, and they had these FLIR cameras. These FLIR cameras measure temperature.
Yep.
They had them within weeks. Do you know? That was in 2003.
Yeah.
Why haven't we had those cameras in every Australian airport since then? That's ridiculous. They cost $150 now. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So the world was already changing, and that was before COVID-19. But the good news is it's not all bad news. With the chances of solving this, the time frame has crushed down. Even in this announcement of we're going to human trials for this vaccine, they said we've done this in months when it normally would take years. And this is the good news. And not every industry is being hit. So you've got to look at, okay, how can I deal with this right now? Because I've lost customers in one area. Maybe I can pivot and get customers in other areas, like, and this is a great example that many people know, the gin distilleries, sorry, that's a hard word, distilleries, who pivoted to making hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Made sense, right?
Good example.
Great example. And many businesses can do this. So let's just look at this chart. This is a chart that shows which industries are laying off, are freezing, or are still in hiring mode. And this is user-generated content, so it's from actual people who work within these companies, and they're informing. And last time I checked, the number will be above 3,000 now, but this is 2,283, so that's a pretty good sample. And at the top, with the biggest layoffs, of course, travel and tourism, 83%. And it looks like what? That's a third are laying off in red. Yellow, it's more than a third are freezing, but there are a few hiring. But if you go way down the bottom, who would you like to be selling to right now? Healthcare, yes. Business software, yes. Financial services, yes. Communication, education. These are the ones that are hardly. And so there are still opportunities. And I'm on the advisory board for a company. Full disclosure, I get a fee for being on their advisory board. So I am mentioning them, full disclosure. They're called Higher Pay. And what Higher Pay is they're like the afterpay for the recruitment industry. And so, and for clients. And so they're actually booming right now. They're doing incredibly well. Why? Because, recruiting fees are expensive. And, could be 30% of a salary, and still people use recruiters, and especially for senior positions. And so they're expensive fees. And what they've come out with is you don't have to pay it all up front, the recruiting fee. You can spread it across, but the recruiter gets the money up front. It's kind of like invoice factoring, but it's like after pay. Their business is booming, I have to tell you. Because they've come up with this something that is needed right now. And I can tell you, this isn't speaking out of school. They have a specialist in-house that knows a lot about infrastructure projects. And do you think any infrastructure projects are stopping, Craig?
No.
They are not.
No, they're still going hard.
Absolutely. They are. And so you might be saying, oh, but I'm in an industry that's being shut down. But the upstream and downstream of infrastructure projects, it's not just people in construction, it's in physio healthcare, it's in products, it's in LED lights, it's IT systems. And so there is still business out there if you go hunting for it. And when we come out of it, there are going to be even better opportunities. And I'll show you where. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Google has a trends list of tracking us. And if you didn't know that Google was tracking us, well, of course, you opted in when you said, yes, I'd like to use Google Maps. And so you can turn it off if you don't want to be tracked. But for most Australians, have been tracked. I mean, it's 22 million uses of Google Maps every single day. That's most of all of Australians. That's a remarkable number. So you can see that retail and recreation areas down 44%, grocery and pharmacy down 13%, parks are down, transit stations are down, going to work is down, residential is up. And there are some other great indicators of what's going on right now. Some funny indicators. Here are some ones. The rise of almost 40%, 39%. Let's learn ukulele. Or how do I do my own haircut? Or blue light glasses. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
Yeah, big rise in that because people are on screens more than ever before. Unfortunately, in America, bulk ammo up 400%.
Whoa.
And of course, unemployment application up 4,700%. And a bidet for all those people who are worried that they can't get toilet paper. And I don't know why they're thinking that. We do not have a problem. We have manufacturing of toilet paper in this country. We have 3 manufacturers. We do not have a supply problem, people. We have a demand problem. We do not have a supply problem. You do not need to buy a, do you know that there's some bidets that sell for $11,000 and they're selling like hotcakes?
Hey.
Oh,
Not
well,
here, they're not.
yeah, but those $11,000 ones, they're really nice. The little jets come out and it plays a little tune for you. And you know, it's exactly the right temperature. Then it nicely air dries you. I mean, it's quite nice. I've tried it, but I'm not going to pay $11,000 for it. An online church and Ute milk and resistance bands up almost 350%. How about TikTok lights? Well, TikTok, #1 social app in the world right now. People want to have better lighting. How much? 100%. Netflix party. How about this? People feel isolated and they want to watch movies together. So how are they doing it? A Netflix party.
Yeah.
You install it in your web browser and the demand for that's gone up. What's that? 9,550%?
9,000%. Yep.
Incredible. And so look, some things are up, some things are down, some things are sideways. You've just got to go hunting, but be prepared for the future because there's going to be more opportunities, especially if you're in the oatmeal business or make DVI cables or standing desks. My sister works for Office Works. She does office fit outs.
Yep.
And the demand at Office Works just went through the roof when everybody said you have to go home and work. The demand for standing desks sold out like that. Monitors went through the roof. We're talking about tens of millions. I can't tell you how much, but it was in the tens of millions of dollars just in 3 days. So there are some opportunities there. And I want to give hope for the future. Because I'm going to ask you a question, Craig, and I don't know how you're going to respond, but I do want to ask you this question. Do you think that there will be more wealth created in the next decade than ever before in history, in spite of what we're going through? Do you believe this?
Yeah, definitely.
And I ask other people, and some people don't believe this, but money doesn't sleep. I mean, yes, Alan Kohler said, the guy from the ABC, the finance guy, he says it's really exhausting being an investor right now. He's a funny guy because the market's up, it's down, it's sideways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the other really interesting thing. At the same time, the rise of philanthropy. People are becoming more wealthy and they're wanting to do more good work in the world. There's this whole drive of let's make money and do social good at the same time. I bet you've been in touch with clients that are talking about this with you.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yep, I've got several clients doing exactly that.
Yeah. So where's this wealth coming from? And this is what I want to do, is to help on the other side of this. You're going to have to find your opportunities and pick your battles. Maybe you have to reinvent yourself. Maybe you have to get an education and do something completely new. I know a lot of people that are doing that, and I could have a recommendation for that for you as well, where you could completely retrain in just 3 or 4 months in an area that's going to boom. Ask me about that when I get to the end. But where this wealth is coming from is from the fourth industrial revolution. And I'll show you how much faster it will be than the last 40 years of the computers and communications revolution that we've been through, because each of these areas bumping into each other are driving growth like you wouldn't believe. I've given one example, but I'll show another one. So this future wealth is coming from the rise of the fourth industrial revolution. And it's these three areas of digital, physical, biological areas. Do you know about neurotechnology, Craig?
Yep.
So neurotechnology, a whole order of field of study now at university. I spoke at a conference a number of years ago, and they discovered that artificial light for shift workers, it's the biggest longitudinal study of health workers we've ever done in history. It's tens of thousands of them over many decades, and they found that the health workers that are working in shift under fluorescent lights, guess what? They are more overweight, they have more diabetes, have more heart disease, breast cancer, all sorts of things. And what we're finding is that this is actually affecting our brains, the type of light. And so those blue glasses that you saw and the night shift that we get on our phones now, this, and if you when you go back to flying on a Virgin flight, they actually tune the LEDs so you don't get jet lag when you're on the other end. This is a field of study, and I spoke at this neurotechnology safety conference, and this one researcher from Queensland University Technology gave all the truck drivers from Toll Holdings special glasses that shone different light into their eyes, and it eliminated a ton of their most dangerous accidents. Those are those rollovers where they go over the side of the freeway or road. That's really dangerous, and a lot of people are hurt or killed. Reduced it by 35% just by changing the frequency of light in their eyes. And so this is one area. This is just one area. I could go into any of these areas and tell you how we can print a house in a day. You've probably seen this on the internet.
Yeah, I have, yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. But have you seen the apartment buildings they can build now? So they print the first floor, they let it set, cure, I guess it's called curing the concrete. And then it sets for a day. Then the robot 3D printer hoists itself up and it prints the next floor. So in 5 days, they print a 5-story apartment building. And do you see any builders doing this right now in Sydney? Have you seen it, Craig?
No.
No. And you know why? Because I talked to them. I was hired by the Building Research Association, Australia, New Zealand, and I said, why aren't you doing this? This would be perfect for low-cost housing. There's a demand for low-cost housing. And you know what the reply was? Oh, we want it to take a long time so we can charge our clients a lot more, Craig. If we could print a house in a day, how could we? I said, you're nuts. Just think about this. You could be the Uber of houses. You could say, I can print you a house in a day, but it's going to cost you 40%, 50% more. Would you be willing to pay 40 or 50% more if you could have a house or a second house or what they call an accessory dwelling unit in your backyard, like a granny flat or something? Yeah. Would you be willing to pay 30 to 50% more if they said it'll be ready tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah. And I said this to them and they said, no. I said, that's Uber. We're actually paying more than we used to pay in taxis now. Uber used to be cheaper. It's more expensive now. And do you think people are complaining? No, they're not.
No.
But they're just not open to these ideas. And so I think that every leader needs to be open to these ideas, because look at what's coming. The last 40 years has been defined by Moore's Law, that said that the price performance of computers and chips and communication would double every 12 to 18 months or so. In other words, the price has come down. And if you put a logarithm, an exponential scale on a log scale, that is orders of 10 down the left-hand side, you can see Moore's Law is on this white line going down. So in other words, a $10 million computer in 2001 today is $10,000. Or I'll give you another example. I used to sell digital video equipment during the Olympics just before 2001 in the year 2000, in 1999, and $1 million studio upgrade was required. All the studios had to do it. Channel 9, Channel 7, ABC, SBS, they were all my clients. They spent millions of dollars of upgrading each of their studios. Black Magic, an Australian company, came out with a little box. It's $1,100, and it is 10 times better than that $1 million studio in 1999. That is the power of Moore's Law. That other line that you see crashing, where the price has gone from 10 million all the way down to 10 cents in that same time, is the cost of sequencing a human genome. And that's why we could do it in 3 days, upload it to Amazon Web Services, and have 300 organizations working on a cure straight away. That's the good news. And this is what I have to tell you. If you think you can continue doing what you're doing over the next 5 to 10 years, and you think that the last 40 years has been incredible, the last 10 years have been incredible, just the last 3 years have been incredible, it looks like the fourth industrial revolution is going to be 100 times bigger and faster. And most people can't even get their heads around this, Craig. So this is what I want to talk to you about. If you invest in the future, if you educate yourself, invest in your professional development, and understand the driving forces, even in the worst of times, they can be the best of times. This is my virtual portfolio. Full disclosure here, this is not real money. This is monopoly money. I am not a professional financial advisor. I am not giving you advice. I'm not giving advice at all. I'm a professional educator, okay? Do not take this as advice. This advice I give to my family. My family has a family office. I advise them. They make their own decisions based on my advice to them. I don't have any direct shares in any of these companies that are in this portfolio that is doing pretty good right now, but I might in my super, because you know my super invests in the ASX 300, but I don't manage that directly. So I might have a company or two like, Sydney Airport's in here, for instance, okay? But look at this. This is from today. My total annual return of this virtual portfolio, that all I did was invest $1,000 in companies that I knew were going to drive the fourth industrial revolution, because we're already in the middle of it. That I knew that 10 years from now would be driving a whole new economy. So in 2013, invested about $30,000. It's now worth $250,000. Not even 10 years. What's that? Was that a 8 times return? I'm not very good.
Like that. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Whatever
it is, it's good.
Okay, and I have to tell you, it dipped down below 100% annual return just a couple of weeks ago, and it's back up again as the market, and it'll go back down again. But this is the long term. This is not day trading. This is a long-term investment. This portfolio is meant to be a 10-year portfolio, and we haven't finished the 10 years. Sure. And I have to tell you, you could easily. I'm not an investing genius. I am not. I'm not even trained in this area. I just took this operating idea, which is that the fourth industrial revolution will be around biology. It'll be around the physical world. It'll be around the digital world. And any companies that are in those areas, and especially the ones that combine them together, are the ones that are going to boom. So I bought virtual shares, $1,000 each, and this is the results. And do you know what? Just over 4 weeks ago, I presented right before an economist from Macquarie Bank. And I showed this as an example. And it was, I think, 115 up on the day. And he came up to present after me, and he said, wow, Craig Rispin is the last person you want to present after. Because I'm going to tell you how the bushfires are going to impact us and how we have other risks. And this is even before COVID was really on the radar for most people. It was on my radar, but he was just talking about the impact of bushfires, and it was going to be flat. And really, we're going to, nothing really was going to happen. It was just going to be steady 3.5% growth. Well, obviously, that all changed. And so, look, what I'm saying to you and to your audience is, if you educate yourself into what the future is, this applies to your business. It doesn't have to be into finance. I'm not making any kind of offer. I don't want your money. I'm not asking for your money. I'm just using this as proof that if you invest in the future rather than the past, you will have a successful business. Now, it just so happens, full disclosure, a business partner of mine, Peter Leggett, and I have started a business called Explore Future Wealth. And if you are a wholesale investor, we can only advise wholesale investor. And if you don't know what that is, you probably aren't one. But if you're a wholesale investor, you're a sophisticated investor, and you would like us to educate you in this area, please contact us. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what your plan is for the future. And so for your clients, Craig, what we have to do is get them focused on this fourth industrial revolution, because that's where all the future wealth is going to come from. Do you believe this?
Yeah. So what's your number one tip to get people? How do we get started on this journey if you're a mid-market business owner? What's the number one thing they should be doing?
So this is what you do. You have some clients, and let's say, for instance, they're all over cloud computing. And they go, oh, I already know about cloud computing. I'm doing quite good on that. I'm doing managed desktops and that kind of thing. I've got quite a successful company. Well, then I would say to them, well, are you also combining, how would you like that kind of growth that is several orders of magnitude faster than Moore's Law? How would you like to apply that to your cloud computing business? And they say to me, I would like to do that, Craig. How do I do that? And I go, well, think about this. A lot of wet labs, and I know a little bit about this because my daughter is a bioinformatician and works in research. A lot of wet labs are moving into data centers because the robots do the genetic testing these days. Yeah. You don't need, there are some manual processes, but a lot of the robots are moving the samples around. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Well, imagine if you had cloud computing and you have a data center, but you also had a wet center at the same time. Imagine what organizations in Australia you could tap into that we working on the COVID virus right now, and you say, we've got this data center that's on a multi-gig connection. It's connected directly to AWS, and it's a wet lab. Would you like us to help you? What do you think they would say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. And those solutions are already out there. Okay. So
fantastic.
Telling me that we're running over time. So anyway, listen, there's so much I would love to share, but I'll give you another example. So an entrepreneur came up to me, and she's really passionate about helping people that are returned veterans that have PTSD. And she's found that there are virtual reality glasses, and you can play scenarios for them, and it has some really positive psychological effects. But nobody in the healthcare system really wants to talk to her. They don't want to do any trials or anything like this. But anecdotal evidence from thousands of veterans who are playing games and other things to help them deal with their PTSD is, this is super helpful. And what I said to her is, you're doing exactly the right thing. You're combining these two areas, virtual reality and neurotechnology. What you need to do is put a neurosensor, and there's one for $329 called the Emotive, and you can actually do a brain scan as they're watching this, and you could publish these results. And I'm sure university research would love to collaborate with you, because then you'd have the data of the neurotechnology connected with this, because virtual reality has a reputation for being game playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's using it for serious, serious counseling. And she has a relative that's been afflicted with this, and this is why she's so passionate about it. As soon as she told me about this, I'm like, how can I help? Because I know this is a huge opportunity. And she said, but I just can't get traction. I said to her, ignore the establishment. The establishment want to hold on to the past. Dr. Peter Drucker said organizations are very good at feeding the past and starving the future.
Yeah.
I said, start the virtual reality PTSD association, make it a grassroots association, amass thousands of anecdotal evidence, and then go to a university and say, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of anecdotal evidence bits. Wouldn't you like to turn this into a study? And then you'll have your study. She said, oh, that's Craig, that's perfect. So what I would say to your clients is, if you're in any of these areas, combine it with another area and you'll get that amplitude. You'll get that X factor. And I can see it when I advise my clients and they're like, oh, I know a little bit about big data. I know a little bit about genetics. I know a little bit about advanced manufacturing. If you could just pivot just a little bit more and add that other thing, it's really going to make a huge difference. And if you don't know about all of these things, if you don't have a deep understanding, how could you possibly invest in any of them? In the stock market or in your business? Invest in your education. And I'm not just saying with me, there are fabulous online courses where, I think I said I was going to mention this, a fabulous online course.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
Okay. So I have people coming to me right now and they're like, my career is over. What do I do, Craig? I'm in the live events business and I need to get out. I can't handle it anymore. I say, well, do you believe that in the future we're going to have flying cars just like we got self-driving cars today? Oh, yeah. Do you know that there's an online course for $850 taught by Sebastian Thrum, the guy who invented the Google self-driving car, and a bunch of other people? And do you know that there are trials of autonomous vertical takeoff and landing planes going on in New Zealand this year in spite of the virus? And you know what they're short on? Are people who know how to do this. And this course is $850. Now, if that's not interesting to you, and I think it's interesting to me, I'm thinking about doing it, because you actually build your own drone and you make it self-flying. There's a self-driving car course. And if you are from the auto industry, or maybe you are supplying parts, do you know what the shortage is for self-driving car engineers? Every single car company in the world is investing billions of dollars in becoming electric car companies with automation. The shortage is massive. I think it's like 45% of all advertised positions right now are going unfilled. And you could train up in one of these online courses. The one that I'm recommending is called Udacity. And in a matter of weeks, or maybe 6 months, with 2 courses, maybe you have to do a prerequisite. All they do is teach you the minimum viable skills you need to do that job. And who's supporting them? Why is it so cheap? Mercedes-Benz, Google is supporting them, Toyota is supporting them, Boeing and Airbus is supporting them. So they're making the course super, super affordable because they're looking for employees. And imagine if you took your entire team through this. So you could take an entire team, and I've recommended this for my big clients like Commonwealth Bank. They came to me and said, we're moving off one IT platform. What should we study for? I said, go here, choose what you're interested in, cybersecurity or artificial intelligence or machine learning. And a bunch of them got together as a group and created this study group. And they got 3 certifications. And I don't know if you heard, Commonwealth Bank laid off like 6,000 people. This is before COVID. And then they said, but don't worry. If you have in-demand digital skills right now, we're hiring 2,000 people. If you have in-demand digital skills, and all of those engineers who followed my advice and messaged me on LinkedIn and said, thank you, Craig, thank you. all of us who got these industry certifications that only took us, they said 10 to 15 hours a week, we all got rehired. And all of our colleagues who didn't follow your advice, they're all looking for work. So it's not just for you as the business owner. You could train your entire team up on a new area in just a few weeks and completely transform your organization. And the great news is a lot of these courses have been discounted 50% because people have got time on their hands. What a better time to retrain. So I'd love, love, love to serve all of your clients with this journey into the future. And so they can reach out to me and I can point them in the right direction. And the right direction isn't, Craig, always, and you should hire me. Many times it's read this book, watch this video, do this course, and come back to me afterwards if you would like some counseling or mentoring or guidance. I'm not trying to sell a
So
course.
how do people get in touch with you, Craig?
Well, the best way is on LinkedIn.
Yep.
LinkedIn's the best way because then you can see other people who have followed my advice and they found it valuable. Recently, somebody said that I saved them. They launched a new product and they said, thank you for saving me $250,000 in my launch, Craig. And that's why I want to send people to LinkedIn so they can see not what I say about myself, but what my customers say that I can do for my clients. So look, I know I've been going all over the place, but I wanted to deliver the maximum value. And if nothing else, everyone that's got the video version of this or a copy of the slides, save this slide and ask yourself, what can I be doing right now to be part of this fourth industrial revolution? What do I have to do for myself? What do I have to do for my organization? What do I have to do for my family?
Fantastic, mate. We're going to wrap it up there because we're out of time. But thank you very much. Really interesting, thought-provoking stuff.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. And anyway, if you'd like to invite me back, we could do a 6-month update as we're coming out of this.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Craig.